Oh, I think the farm has been his life. He loves his farm. He loves the smell, the feel, the air, everything about it.
I think the life lessons here at the farm come from the farm family way of life. You learn the responsibility to care for the animals, how to work, how to allot your time, what needs to be done seasonally and when it needs to get done. There's always something to go on here, and you have to either pick, harvest, plant, milk, deliver, whatever it takes to run the farm, and especially if you're a family farm.
Whit Davis is the pride of Stonington. He's been in this town for almost 92 years now, and his name is synonymous with farmer, conservationist, and a person who basically has always trying to take care of the town of Stonington in many, many affairs. He's an icon in the farming sector. He is one of the original Inland Wetland Commission members, and his stories are legendary.
During the war, Roosevelt, our president, came on with one of his famous fireside chats. And it was in the newspaper and the radio. My father and I, we hurried up with the milk and the chores that night. We wanted to get in the house at 9 o'clock to hear the president. And then he came on to say, we're going to have a big military and we've got to have food. And you, the American farmer, have got to feed the world. We did. They worked hard from Connecticut to California and from Minnesota to Mexico. And it was just work, work, work. And gasoline was rationed. We couldn't buy a tractor. So Legend Anthony, a livestock dealer up in North Stonington, was bringing in draft horses from Nebraska by the carload on the railroad. And every ton of food that we raised here in New England on the East Coast was a ton less that they had to transport from California and Florida up here. And that was saved room on the trucks and the railroads for the war material.
The first time I met Whit Davis, he just showed up on his own at the Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center. He had his arms full of dozens of eggs. He wanted to donate to people who needed them. He has a twinkle in his eye, a great smile. He went on his merry way about his day, but he'd given us a great gift of these dozens and dozens of eggs, a wonderful sought-after protein in an emergency food pantry. Whit cares about his neighbors and is a very generous man.
You know where you stand with Whit Davis. He doesn't pull any punches with friends on the same level or politicians, or he speaks eye to eye and gives everybody his opinion and let it fall where it will. Whit is an advocate for the land as far as an advocate for the community.
The merchants in Mystic were discussing the possibility of having a farmer's market. And so they were having a meeting because the park people didn't want to have the farmer's market in the park. And so I called Whit and I said, Whit, I need you here. What for? And I said, I'll explain it later. It's like you can depend on him. And so he came to the meeting, he spoke at the meeting, he knew what the cause was. Of course, he always supports farmers.
Whit has been very effective in his dealings with the politicians.
My late wife and I went up to Putney to represent Connecticut because the Full House Agricultural Committee was coming down to see why the New England farms were disappearing. And I was a little nervous. I read my presentation in about 4 minutes, but they had me on for half an hour. Near the end of the meeting, they called me back on the witness stand, and I was there for an hour. And I used the man from Maine, who was a dairy farmer, and he was milking 50 cows. And he said that he had to add on more land and more cows so as to make the farm sustainable. And he and his wife and young son were sitting in there in the front row, and I said, now I've got a colleague from Maine. I says, I bet that young boy is out there feeding the calves their grain and nipple pails. And they nodded yes. And I says, now, chances are that when the father passes on, the farm will come to the young boy there. I says, and the first thing that's going to happen is, I says, you, not you guys personally, not you men, but you, the government, come in and take, you only give them $50,000 exemption on the inheritance tax, and you take about 40% of the appraisal. So they have to sell the farm to pay the tax. I says, and you people wonder where the farms go. So I says, our exemption at that time back then hadn't been changed since the 1940s, and it was only a $50,000 exemption. And so I asked them, I says, do you, any of you gentlemen, I says, you've asked all the questions. I said, let me ask a couple. I says, you gentlemen, any of you got a business? And two of them raised their hands, and I said, good. I said, now your business is none of my business. I want to ask you a couple of questions. Do you buy the material for your business, retail, and sell your end product wholesale? One of them says, no, you can't do that. And I pointed my finger right at him. I said, no, but you, the government, make us do it every day in the week.
He's usually hit the nail on the head with his thoughts.
And there was a piece in the paper and on the black and white television then that they had raised the inheritance tax to $600,000. Now, it wasn't just my testimony, but I sacked it to him so that a grammar school child could understand it. And so now it's up to $1 million or over now.
If you'll only look and see, I know you will agree that the taxes on the farmer feeds us all.
The true steward of the land.
He farms the land using the practices that are time-honored. He grows that flint corn. If you have tried other cornmeals, you will realize that Whit Davis, the Davis Farm Johnny Cake meal is by far the best.
My relationship with Whit Davis, we've been friends for 25 or more years. We met long ago. I invited him to a picnic we were having to cook flint corn.
We always invite Whit Davis to come to our cultural week and make us Johnny cakes. And every year, Whit accepts that invitation. So we have the privilege of having Whit and his lovely wife, Valora, come out to us.
One thing I realized right away was, like, this guy's a rock star.
People stand in line for a long time to eat those Johnny cakes. That is a tradition that we're hoping to keep going for generations to come, because now Whit brings his granddaughter, and he has also been bringing his great-granddaughter. So that is something that will continue long after I'm sitting here and Whit's here. The history between the Mohegan tribe and the Davis family goes back almost 400 years. Our common ancestors at that time were great friends, and that is Chief Uncas and Thomas Stanton.
He said, Uncas walked in this door. Uncas sat here 13 generations ago, a man from your tribe, your leader. Taught me that you don't need to make big deals out of everything in your life. This guy is the man who preserved quietly history. Nobody could ever replicate what he did here. You know, he could have made this, like, I don't know, you think about most people, they have a beautiful piece of land, what do? They think about, how can I profit, what can I sell? Whit quietly kept it, preserved it, made this, you know, a connection back to Mohegan, which is very important to me, being a Mohegan myself.
Well, right opposite here is where the 48-acre Indian village site is, and we're in the process now working with the Stonington Conservation and the Stonington Land Trust on preserving it so it'll never be built up. Nick Bellatoni, our state archaeologist, and Kevin McBride, the professor of archaeology at University of Connecticut, and is also the archaeologist for the Mashantucket Pequot tribe, say that that's been used for agriculture for 10,000 years, as a village for 10,000 years, and they estimated by the size of the site and the artifacts found there and the graves and all that have been found that they had, it was more than a village. They said it was more like a small Indian town. They estimated there'd probably be 250 people lived there at one time. And right now it hasn't been disturbed or planted or anything, and it's just as it was when the last Indian walked away from it.
He's certainly passionate about keeping the farm, keeping it intact, conservation and preservation. And that goes as well as setting up the 501c3 foundation that maintains the house. The farm has easements over all of the land for in perpetuity. There'll never be a shovel or a house put on any of it.
So right now we're in the process of restoring this beautiful homestead. With the help of the community, we're on the road to making this into a living museum.
My ancestor, Thomas Stanton, settled here in 1654, and we've been here ever since. Our roots go pretty deep.
Whit has wit.
He keeps you laughing all the time.
I would say that the man has his own sense of humor. Once you meet Dad, you'll know that he can really talk.
And I loved to go square dancing, and we had our own set. We were had a prom when I was in high school down to Watch Hill at the Ocean House. They had a live band, and they had a competition, waltz. So Mary and I said to her, I said, what do you say? You want to give it a try? Well, I had taken some ballroom dancing, so I knew quite a few steps. And she was very good at following. So we went out there and we tried it, and we got right underneath that big chandelier in the ballroom there. It was a huge one. And she looked at me and she says, don't look down, pick up your feet and keep dancing. And I did. So where we got by that spot, we were doing some of our turns, waltzing, I looked back, and there was a great big round half slip in the shape of a donut right underneath that chandelier. Her half slip had slipped off down on the floor. But we kept dancing. That kind of shook us up a little bit. We took second.
I joined a square dance group, and I didn't worry about a partner. They said they would furnish an apartment. Well, in the long story short, Whit became my partner because he kept getting in the square with me and staring at me.
He is a flirt.
As I say, every time I leave him alone, what does he end up with a woman? He goes home with me.
I just can't think of anyone else that is alive and walking on the earth today that can tell a story as engaging as Whit can. He can bring you right there. I can feel the wind and the sun and the rain, whatever is going on at the moment. And that is a gift, a true gift.
That 38 hurricane came across here, and in this field we had corn, cattle corn in there. And it was about 10 feet tall, and all they could see was the tassels floating. And between gusts of wind, we'd do what we could about nailing our doors shut in the barn. Between gusts, we was out there in the yard and seeing what we could do next. And I saw some water, something splashing right where we're sitting here. And this bowway, and of course the corn was flat, you know, but all the wreckage that drifted across it. And I couldn't make out what it was, so I came down the hill from the house, and this was a person. They're on their knees getting up out of the water, and it was a young girl. And so when I got down here, I saw what it was, and I helped her up out of the water. And I was 14 years old at the time, and she was 19. And I was just beginning to notice the girls a little bit. And her clothes were just torn in shreds. It looked like the tail on a kite. And I thought to myself, boy, I said, here's a real live mermaid. I said, she had all the attributes but a tail.
He finds humor in lots of things.
At his age, he's like a ever-ready battery, just keeps going.
So if you ever talk to Whit and you get to meet Whit and he tells you something, it's from his heart. Whit doesn't tell anything but that. Every story, every piece of history, no matter what he's doing or just meeting you and connecting with you, it is all from his heart. That is what Whit Davis is, a real man.
He's the best guy we've ever had.
Whit is neighborly.
Vintage.
The real deal.
Fair.
He's a lover.
Witty.
Hardworking.
A visionary.
Honest, always.
He's knowledgeable.
Genuine.
He is amazing.
He respects everybody and everything.
And he's the most beautiful man I know.
Congratulations, and just very proud.